All right. Yeah.
I was in a meeting before this for a seminary class I'm taking, and I ran out of coffee and forgot to turn my camera off. I was making the coffee on the screen. I got no end of abuse for my extreme hipsterism.
Okay, I've given up on live streaming. Here we go. I tried my best.
It says it's live.
Yeah, well, we can say that, but I think it's lying. Let's see.
What's wrong with? Why can't you do it, Rabbi?
Oh, it says it's working. Here, let me double check. Here, wait 1 second. Let's do that terrible thing where you watch.
Harvey.
Okay.
Working for us. Yeah.
Here we go. I'm gonna double check and see how horrible this is. Okay. Watch server. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Christian Jewish dialogue. And oh nope. Let's see.
Are you waving to yourself? Should we be worried about that?
There's a delay. So, there I am. Oh, that's horrible. I do not like watching stuff live streaming. Okay. So, Jason, you are now a co-host. Okay. People are still
with
coming.
The power.
There we are.
There. Okay.
We'll use Spotlight, and I'll mute everyone when we get started. We're just a couple of more people are jumping in here. A few of my troublemakers.
Uh-oh.
You know, my millennials, like Harvey. Very nice. Okay. Jason, how are you surviving? How are your services online or virtual? How are you holding up with that?
Good, man. Last week we did our very first Zoom worship service.
Did you do Easter on Zoom?
We recorded Easter services and just kind of published them on YouTube, but this was the first time we did a over Zoom worship service, and it was a delightful piece of chaos.
That is what we go for, delightful chaos.
Yeah, delightful piece of chaos. That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, what you need is a Mark Blatter. You know, he's
I was waiting. I knew you were not going to let me go.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Jason.
Who's talking? Yes.
Me, Joan. So our neighbor's grandson goes to the preschool in your church, and we were talking to them this morning, and she was raving about the Tuesday afternoon class for an hour that her grandson is attending, how wonderful it was. So I just wanted you to pass that compliment along.
Well, thank you.
Wow. Do you teach the class, Jason? Do you do like an hour with the kids? No.
Heavens no. Heavens no. They don't let me anywhere near the preschool.
That's so
Oh.
Well, you know what I'm going to do? It's 12:03. I'm going to start muting. Here it goes. Okay. If I mute all, then unmute Jason. Now the two of us can interrupt each other. Okay. This way, if you're walking in the wind, we can't hear you. And we got a couple more people coming on. So I'm so glad we're doing this again. You know, we're starting to do every Thursday, but it's nice to get half a break. All right. And we are recording. We're live and very nice. And I don't see anyone else connecting via audio. Oh, nope. Someone else is connecting. All right. It gives you like 2 seconds there to get in there. Okay. Nope. Someone else came on. Okay. We'll start in 1 minute. Let's say 1 minute. Well, you keep on eating, Jace.
Thank you. I'm almost nearly done.
You find the time to eat.
Well, there are no cookies today, so I had to make do.
Except a lot of us are gaining a lot of weight in this quarantine. I do not like having a refrigerator and a cabinet near me all day long.
Yeah,
it's brutal. Yeah, and I don't move much. Amy got the office in our house, and I got the back corner of my bedroom, so I can't move. This table is right here, from here to here. That's how far that's the room I have in my room, and then I put the virtual background, so I feel like there's something, versus just a wall, and I can't even.
I bought because it's essential. This indoor bike trainer. I ride my bike a lot.
Yeah.
But the new one turned it into a video game where if I pedal, the little dude on the screen pedals, and if he goes uphill, the trainer gets harder.
Yeah.
It's addicting. because you make a little person, and the only way you can get upgrades to your little person is they give you sweat points. If you climb a hill, you earn so much sweat. You can't use money. You have to use sweat. So you have to keep working out to be able to get the dude new clothes and stuff. That's terrible. It's where I'm headed right after this. So at least I'm doing something.
Well, I got my.
Yeah, he can. I was going to ask, what kind of trainer do you have?
I have, if we really want to get technical, the Wahoo Kicker Core.
Okay, because my husband's looking for one. So
Wahoo Kicker Core.
Absolutely love it. Sue, talk to me after. We'll exchange notes.
I'll put you on with Steve. He's right here. So afterwards.
All right.
Okay. So, and by the way, I have my stationary bike right next to me. I'm going to start doing services on the bike. I think that'll really annoy people. That's.
We'll just mute you, Rabbi.
What's that?
We'll just mute you.
That's a good idea. So, what's going to happen? Yeah. So the idea would be we'll do a spinning class meets services. Page 30. Let's go up to 4.3. Okay. Okay, I'm going to, let's see, let me get the settings right. Mute on the entry. Good. Alt mute. Okay, now you're all unmuted. Now you're muted. Now Jason is unmuted. The two of us are unmuted. Everyone else is muted. It's 12:06, which is early for us, and we're going to get started. All right, so today, before the world changed on us, we had topics for the whole year, and this one was set for Earth Day. So when I got my Earth Day committee chairperson who contacted me yesterday, they said, or 2 days ago, they said, will you sign a document that says you will teach publicly about Earth Day? I'm like, yeah, I'll do that, because thanks to Jason, it was already on our calendar. So I'm going to get started. If you're new to Christian-Jewish Dialogue, welcome. I'm actually going to change what I see. I'm going to make it so I only see people with videos because you're getting cut off. There's too many of you. It's a real problem. Okay, here we go. Hide non-video participants. Now it's much cleaner. Okay, so what's going to happen is we usually start off with a rabbi, a reverend, and then we open it up. And we always are done by 1:15, but we do find that Zoom seems to move faster. People have so much screen time. We're not our children. So here we go. I'm going to get started this time. Jason started last time. And I'm going to do the Jewish view of Earth Day, climate change, taking care of the earth. In Hebrew, it is called Bal Tashchit. It won't be on the test. Do not destroy. It is one of the top ethics, midot, ethics or values we live by. Bal Tashchit, do not destroy. I'm going to lead you down the story till we get to Bal Tashchit, preserving the earth. I'm going to start with, okay, and now I'm going to try to be, good at this. I'm going to share my screen. So there's nothing wrong with your screen when you see something change. Okay, here we go. Let's see what this looks like. If your screen has Deuteronomy chapter 11, verses 13 through 21, then you're looking at the right thing. Okay, Jason, do you see that? Okay, good. So we read this paragraph. This is from in Judaism, we read this 3 times a day, twice a day at least. This is from the Shema. This is the second paragraph of the Shema. The Shema is the holiest prayer in Judaism. Most people know the first line, "Hero is the Lord our God, the Lord is one." Most people, who do it know the second line, "And you shall love the Lord your God all with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might." The second paragraph is the long one that we always skip, and in Hebrew. And what we have here in Deuteronomy chapter 11, this verse that we say morning and evening is, I'll summarize, it's too many words for me. But to summarize, if you follow my commandments, my mitzvot, and I'll give you rain, and I'll give you wind, and the earth will produce its produce, and you'll get all this good natural stuff. And if you don't follow the law, you don't get the stuff. So now I'm going to stop my share, okay, so I can see myself again. I'm going to put myself on Spotlight even because it's easier for me. Okay, and So this paragraph, when I'm applying to rabbinical school back in the old days, 20, let's see, it's 18, 24, like 30 years ago when I applied to rabbinical school, they asked me, they go, Alex, what do you think about the second paragraph? And I remember this was back in the 80s because it was kind of cool back in the 80s. I said, I look at this as the environmental paragraph, that if we take care of the earth will take care of us. It wasn't very Harry Potterish. If I say these words, it will rain. It's more of we have a responsibility to the earth because back then we cared. So we keep on going and we start with creation, Genesis. So here's my next screen share. Okay, my next screen share should be Genesis. Here we go, share screen. I see it here. Oh, that's so cute. It moves up to my next thing. Okay, Genesis 2:15. And the Lord God took the man, okay, Adam and Eve, placed him in the Garden of Eden to till it and tend it. That's all you need. Okay, so we say that God made people, and what is our job? We are partners with God in finishing the work of creation. Even if God is perfect, God's creation may have there may be something lacking in the creation of the world. And what we look at it as, we are partners with God in finishing the work of creation. That's a Jewish concept. We are partners with God in finishing the work of creation. Just to prove that I'm right, I will now show you another verse, and I'll let you look at it a little faster, a little longer. There we go. I'm going to show you ancient commentary on this verse. And here we go, share screen. And I found it, and I only have 6 handouts. Here it goes. This is Kohelet Rabbah. It's from the book of Ecclesiastes commentary. The holy, blessed one, that's God, took the first human, that's Adam, passing before all the trees of the Garden of Eden. And God said, see my works, how fine and excellent they are. All that I created for you. Consider that and do not corrupt or desolate my world, for if you corrupt it, there will be no one to set it right after you. So this idea that we are partners with God, our hands are the hands of God, we are supposed to finish the work of creation, make a heaven on earth, and till it and tend it. So I keep on going. We're partners. And then I'm going to tell you a little story. I'll make it a quick one. And the little story goes like this. I told this to you a billion years ago, back with Jim. We were talking about original sin. And I said there's another way of looking at the original sin story for Jews and for Judaism. And it goes like this. Once upon a time, there's a man, Adam. He's in the Garden of Eden. Everything lives forever in the Garden of Eden. You live forever. Everything grows perfectly. It doesn't need any help. Fine. It's the Garden of Eden. It's perfect. It's paradise. But there's a gate around the Garden of Eden. And one day, Adam is walking around the gate, the fence of the Garden of Eden. He looks outside of the fence. That's outside of paradise, the Garden of Eden. And he sees a little tomato plant. He said he's very lonely. So he starts talking to that tomato plant. He loves that tomato plant. It's his friend. Every day he ask the tomato plant how it's doing. It does not respond. One day, the tomato plant starts drooping, and Adam is very upset that his friend is drooping. So he says to God, because Adam's got that relationship with God, God, what's going on? And God explains, well, in the Garden of Eden, everything lives forever. But outside of the Garden of Eden, there's no one to take care of it. It's not forever, and therefore it's going to die. And Adam says, but what can we do about it? And God says, well, you would have to leave the Garden of Eden and water it and, take care of it. And Adam, and I guess we'll add even because, it's a story. Adam and Eve choose to leave the Garden of Eden to take care of the rest of the world because no one else was going to do it. So instead of being an expulsion from the Garden of Eden, an expulsion from paradise, it was the idea that we chose to leave paradise because if we only take care of ourselves, who will take care of the rest of the world? So it's another way of looking at that original moment. Okay, here we go. And Earth Day, fine, good. I'm going to get closer. Here we go. So now I'm getting to, where does Baal Tashchit, do not destroy the world, come from? It comes from right here in Deuteronomy. Okay, here we go. Share screen. I'm going to give you a couple of verses from Deuteronomy. And let's see. Okay, good. Anything, their power. What is this one? Let's see. Just going to look at this for 1 second. Yeah, this is actually good. Okay, so, except all your faces are in my way. According to one medieval rabbi, those who are mindful of this mitzvah of do not destroy will not destroy even a mustard seed in this world, and they are distressed over every ruination and spoilage that they see. And oh goodness, you're all in my way here. Let me see if I can minimize you. There you go. And if they are able to do any rescuing, they will save anything for destruction with all of their power. This idea that we have a responsibility to fix the world. Now, that's not really what I want to share, so I'm going to share something else. New share. Here it goes. Deuteronomy, just in case you don't have your Deuteronomies memorized. This is Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 19, and that we're finishing up here. So get ready, Jason. When in your war, and trust me, I know it's the context. When you're in a war against a city, you have to besiege it a long time in order to capture it. You must not destroy its trees. Bal tashchit. Do not destroy its trees. Wielding the axe against them, you may eat of them, but you must not cut them down. Are the trees of the field human to withdraw before you into the besieged city? They've got nothing to protect them. Let me finish up in verse 20. Here we go. Verse 20. Only the trees that you know do not yield food may be destroyed. So it's not perfect in the Bible. You may cut them down for constructing siege works against a city that is waging war on you until it's been reduced. So don't take the context of it. Just take those few words, do not destroy the trees, because that's what the rabbis do. So what the rabbis do here is, I'm going to show it to you right here. I think I have got to it right here. And then that's my last share. Here it goes. I'm going to minimize you too, because you're in my way. Here it goes. So this last share, you must not destroy the trees. Verse 19. This is the commentary. The most famous rabbi in history is Maimonides, Rabbi Moses ben Maimon. From Moses to Moses, there was never a Moses. Here it goes. He's the one who came up with Bal Tashchit. We are not to be so carried away in time of war that we forget the war will be over one day, and people will have to live and feed their families in the place where battles are now raging. Beyond that, Maimonides writes, not only one who cuts down a fruit tree, but anyone who destroys any household goods, tears clothes, demolishes buildings, stops a spring, ruins food deliberately, violates the prohibition, Bal Tashchit, you must not destroy. Many legal systems, including the laws of the United States, permit people to destroy their own property. However, Jewish law teaches us that we are only custodians, not the true owners of our property. And on the very bottom, this is the Jewish law that comes from it. The concern for fruit trees and these verses provide one of the foundations for the Jewish concern for the environment. We are commanded to preserve the environment even as we use it. And that is the end of my sharing from my screen share. So when it comes to Earth Day and when it comes to Judaism, we are commanded to take care of the earth. We believe that God gave it to us in the beginning, from Adam and Eve, and all the way to Deuteronomy. This idea that, and as we get older, I find it fascinating. Even the weather, this extreme weather, some say that we may be causing the extreme weather too, and how we're treating the earth now. Back to my original statement about Deuteronomy, where it says, if you take care of the earth will take care of you. If you're not nice to the earth, maybe the earth is not nice to us. And we may be reaping what we reap what we sow. I don't know. It's not one of our lines. So Jason, I'm handing it over to you. You can unmute yourself. I didn't mute you, and you're good. I'm putting the spotlight on you because I don't need to see myself anymore.
I do love the spotlight. I do love the spotlight. So I'll do a little bit of screen sharing here. Let me see if I can figure it out, because I'm not the world's best Zoomer. But this is from John chapter 1. This is the beginning of the Gospel of John, and I think it is a good scripture to start with from a Christian perspective on creation care. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John is a beatnik poet in the Bible writing world. The word he's referring to here is Jesus. So in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word was with God in the beginning. Everything came into being through the Word, and without the Word, nothing came into being. So John throws us back to this original creation story that Alex read for us. That was one of my scriptures too. Alex stole it from me. But this idea, this idea that we were given the purpose of taking care of the creation that God's given us, right? Adam and Eve are put in the garden and asked to till it. And even the curse that comes later for their disobedience, you still have to till the garden. You still have to take care of the earth. It's just going to be really hard now, which I always laugh at when people talk about what the cost of creation care or dealing with climate change would be, how difficult that is, how hard that's going to be. My answer is almost always, well, yeah, we've been told that from the beginning, that this is going to be hard work and that taking care of our planet is actually going to cost us something. So that's one thing. But the reason I start with the story in John is because if it's in fact true that God took care and took the time to create everything, then for us to do anything that seems to flaunt the importance of creation, if we start to disregard the importance of God's earth, then we are essentially saying that thing that you made, that thing that you invested time and energy and creativity into, God, we don't care about. We're going to use it the way we want to use it. And that to me seems flip and kind of disrespectful, at least to the Almighty. So that's my first part. And then this, from a Christian perspective, I think this is a verse that gets often overlooked, and even when it is pulled up, it is misused. This is from Romans 8. Paul writes this: I believe that the present suffering is nothing compared to the coming glory that is going to be revealed in us. The whole creation waits breathless with anticipation for the revelation of God's sons and daughters. Creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice. It was the choice of the one who subjected it, but in the hope that the creation itself will be set free from slavery to decay and brought into the glorious freedom of God's children. We know that the whole creation is groaning together and suffering labor pains up until now. And it's not only the creation. We ourselves who have the Spirit as the first crop of the harvest also groan inside as we wait to be adopted and for our bodies to be set free. There is a stream of Christianity, there's a particular contingent of Christianity that says salvation is just all about my personal relationship with Jesus. If you scan the entirety of the Bible, you will never come across the phrase personal relationship with Jesus. It's not there. Christianity is not a one-to-one relationship. Christianity, as Paul tells us, is about the redemption of the whole creation. The argument Paul makes is that the whole creation fell when Adam and Eve sinned, back to that original sin piece. But when that happened, Jesus Christ is here to redeem not just me, Jason Fryer, or us as Christians. The entirety of creation is being redeemed back with Jesus. So again, our refusal to take care of the creation is ultimately pushing back against the redemption that Jesus offered us. That if Jesus actually came to redeem the entire world and we're like, we're going to burn fossil fuels till we can't breathe anymore, that's a problem, right? That's a problem. I want to say two things that are kind of related, that there are two distinct discussions at play here when we're talking about creation. And the first is climate change. And I'm going to put my cards on the table because I feel like I ought to. It is happening. Climate change is a thing. Reasonable people could disagree about whether it is man-made climate change or whether this is a natural cycle of the earth. I personally am of the conviction that it's man-made. And incidentally, during this pandemic, we're seeing evidence of that. I read a story the other day that in Venice, with all the canals and the streams and rivers, they discovered that there are dolphins living in the streams of Venice. And they didn't know they were there because there was so much pollution in the water that we never saw them. But now that everybody's in quarantine and we have relaxed our production in the world, all of a sudden the creation is starting to snap back. I saw a picture the other day of France and the arch that was taken 6 weeks ago and then was taken today, and it is so much clearer, it's hilarious. It looks like someone photoshopped a bunch of haze out of the picture, right? So again, reasonable people can disagree about that. I, for one, am pretty well convinced that some of what's happening to our planet is a result of us. I have some science for you. I'll throw some science numbers at you. And everything is written in Celsius because, Americans are crazy. But I went ahead and converted it for you because that's just the kind of service we offer here at the Jewish Christian Dialogue. Since the Industrial Revolution, since we started burning coal for fun, the planet's temperature has risen 33.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Since the invention of the steam train, that's how much it's gone up, and it's still going up. Scientists say that if that number gets to 34.7 degrees, if we've risen 34.7 degrees, life as we know it will change drastically in the world. There will be floods, hurricanes, other natural events will become more frequent. You'll see them a lot. In other places, droughts and growing conditions will change such that famine will be a very real and prevalent problem in the world. People in river basins will see their supply of fresh drinkable water diminish. On and on and on and on. It's going to have measurable impacts to the entire world. And this is not the same thing as weather. Almost every year we get one day in Pittsburgh that is like minus 20 degrees, and we all go outside and curse and say, where's global warming when you need it? At least one person will say it to me every time we have a cold day. Climate change is not the same thing as weather. And actually, those cold days are a result of climate change. Part of climate change is that the temperature fluctuates wildly. So there is global warming. I think we're responsible for it. But even if you're on the other side of that particular argument, that's fine. I think that if you're reading either of our texts, the Hebrew Bible, the New Testament, you cannot escape the fact that we have been called by God to care for the creation we've been given. No matter what, I think if you're a person of faith, it is impossible to ignore God's constant reminder that we were put in charge of this planet to take care of it, to till the garden, to have stewardship of it. So yeah, I think that's a very vital piece of who we are and what we're doing. And that's my piece for today. So I think it's question time.
Okay, so I unmuted both of us. I made it gallery view. Here, I'll even take the spotlight off of you just because.
Oh, man.
I know, I'm sorry. And and by the way, I was watching a video last night of jellyfish in the Venice canals. I thought it was gorgeous because again, it's this idea that now you can see the water, and it's like I am finding it fascinating to see all this. Okay, so what we do now is my screen doesn't. I have a smaller screen because Amy got the good computer. I also got the. So if you want to speak or ask a question, there's a couple ways of doing it. One, you can raise your hand virtually with the, I don't know, it's on the bottom thing under chat, I think. Let's see.
I think it's in participants. Maybe.
Participants. Okay, you're right. So if you click on your participants view, you can go to yourself and you can raise your hand and we can call upon you. You can also wave wildly until we unmute you. And look, Bob Dilly raised his hand like a good boy. And we'll try to call on people. The problem for me is, remember, I can't see everyone on my screen. So you could be waving wildly. I won't see you. Maybe Jason has a better computer. So, maybe he can see.
I'll try to keep an eye out.
I can only see 20 out of the 32. Okay, here we go.
There's also the chat box. If you need the chat box, you can hop in there.
And the chats I will see. They'll pop up, and we can do chats as well. So here it goes. You want to call on someone? There's where did Bob go?
I was gonna say, Bob, do you really have a question, or are you just?
No, I do.
Okay.
I do. Yeah. The other scripture, and it's in Genesis, I hear thrown around, is this subdue the earth thing, and so that's the one I hear thrown around to go in the other direction.
Jason, you want that one? Subdue the earth?
That feels like coming out of your book. I have always heard from my teachers and professors that subdue is a interesting translation of what's going on there. That stewardship is a better word. Yeah,
control. You're responsible for it. Yeah, it's all right. That's what I was taught too.
Right. Like I am subduing my lawn right now by mowing it pretty frequently, but that's not the same thing as totally taking advantage of it. And just scorched earth policy. So is it subdued? Well, sometimes it's subdued. Sometimes I'm a little farther behind on the lawn mowing than I ought to be. But I think that's part of it, is you have to care for it in order for it to be subdued.
Yeah, I agree with Rabbi Fryer that it's when the Hebrew word we take to mean more of take ownership. You are responsible for it, but along with great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
As Spider-Man has taught us. Okay, someone else?
I saw Sue had a hand raised.
Can you find her somewhere? Maybe she knows how to unmute herself, so I can't see her on my screen.
Okay, I
there you go.
unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so one thing that hit me when you were both speaking is that regardless of how great stewards each of us are as individuals are, we are all unwilling or willing participants in I don't know how you want to say it, but because of the technology we use, the batteries that are in our technology and how they're, the mineral, not the minerals, the chemicals or whatever, our mind, or, we're all part of this. So any commentary, because no matter how hard you can only do what you can do, or choose to be a Luddite, or choose not to be on this Zoom call, but we are all, participating in that destruction, right?
Yeah, we're all complicit. Yeah, I'm sure every religion thinks it's their own story. The story about the boat and the drilling only under your seat thing. I'm sure, Jason, you got one of those stories too. You were all on a boat and the guy's drilling under a seat and he says, yeah, but it's only under my seat. So we do all have a responsibility. Judaism, and I'm sure all religions say that standing idly by, that's in the Torah, in the Bible, don't stand idly by the blood of your neighbor, and that we all have a role to play. I mean, it's not, you can recycle all you want, but if you're standing by and we're using our cell phones and we're watching, we're all complicit. There is no end to it. There's a line, and I'm not. Amy quotes it all the time, but the job is never done. But we also don't have. It's like there's three parts of it. It's in the Pirkei Avot, the Talmud, 2,000 years ago, and it was like three parts to it. It's like the boss is insistent. That's God. The job is never done. Our work of finishing the work of creation, and three, and you're never allowed to stop doing it. Like these three parts to it. And it's Sue, you're right. We all are responsible. It's not, no one's perfect. I don't know if you watched the show. What was the show? The Good Place. So The Good Place, there's this, I like the show, but the idea is no one gets into heaven. And why does no one get into heaven? Because even the best person, when they buy a tomato in the store, they don't they know about the pesticides and the person who picked the tomato, even if they're, everyone is making mistakes. No one's perfect. And we all have, the job is never done. We never can stop doing it. And God is insistent. That's,
Thanks.
I think in with that too is this willful ignorance that a lot of us have. So you're right that we all every day have an impact on the environment and the creation. But a lot of us are very content to not ever ask what that impact is, to never actually try and track down what we do. One of the quotes I heard, there's a great movie on Netflix called Minimalism. If you're interested in a film about some of this stuff, it's more about purchasing and how much we consume as Americans. But the line that stuck with me is, the problem is not that we are too materialistic. The problem is we are not materialistic enough. So how many of you could tell me right now where your shirt was made? Right? Like, we just don't know. We know where we bought it, but we don't know where it was made, what resources were used to create it, what were the working conditions like for those factory workers, what impact on the environment does that? We just don't know, and we're not interested enough to ask. And I think part of what it looks like to care for the creation is to have a healthy curiosity around what is the impact of X, Y, and Z daily choice that I'm making.
Right. I just got someone just sent me a chat. It's a footprint network, the footprint calculator, exactly what Jason's talking about. The footprint. Thank you, Helena. It's like, what my action, what are the, do we want to know? We should know. And ignorance is bliss, but ignorance is not an excuse. So the footprintnetwork.org, footprint calculator. Interesting. Knowing what our actions, the effects they have, everything we do, every little part. All right, got more people. Yeah, we got. Yeah, it's.
I see Mark Blatter raised his hand.
Oh, look at him. Okay. Wait, you have to unmute.
You can hear me now. You can hear me now.
We can hear you.
Okay. So my question is, what are the views of both of the religions of destruction on a huge scale, like what happened in Dresden, Germany during World War II, or what happened to Nagasaki and Hiroshima?
Go get him, Alex.
I'm a big, yeah, I was just talking to my 10th graders last night about this, and yeah, I was focusing on the civilian life, and that, sometimes they use that excuse where actually we were in a class about sacrifice last Saturday for our Torah study. And we talked about, was that a sacrifice of innocent to, or the few to protect the many. But when it comes to the destruction, if we're talking about the world, and so last night when we were talking about kind of saying, can you do animal testing, and is there another way? Was there another way to do this? And I can't claim one way or the other that World War II ends a different way, or was it worth killing innocent people and civilians to save more, 100 million. But Judaism would frown upon it. Maimonides has a lot of rules for war, and almost all of them are protect the civilians, to protect the innocent. I don't think there's anything. It's easy to say this again, armchair quarterback, whatever, Monday morning quarterback. It's easy to say for me that I really think that we could have found another way. I just read an article about our bombings in Japan, not Nagasaki and Hiroshima, actually. There's more stuff coming out even last week about some of the fire bombings we did, where we just it destroyed everything. We're focusing on the trees. We know this is also happening in Israel, the destruction of trees, millions upon millions of acres of trees. So I would say that Judaism would probably say, can you find another way? It's that I think that's, it's easier for me to say now, Monday morning afterwards, or 50 years later. But I think Judaism would say, can we find another way? It's that we usually say you can't choose one life over another life. You don't know whose blood is redder. Is a common term 2,000 years ago. So I think the rabbis would have frowned upon the Nagasaki, Dresden, Hiroshima, and the list goes on.
I'm even thinking about, I think Christianity is in a very similar spot. I think we talked about when we talked about just war a couple months ago.
Yes.
We did do that, right? I can't remember that today is Thursday. So, but I carry this kind of sense that as Christians, we are dual citizens, that we are citizens of the United States in this particular instance, and we are citizens of the kingdom of God. And so did the bombings in Japan make sense for the war? From an American standpoint, probably, right? They talk about how many lives could have been killed or lost in that situation. Like, you could probably lay out the logistics of that, and I would go, yeah, that makes sense for our nation. The Christian in me listens to Jesus saying, turn the other cheek, and vengeance is the Lord's, and things like that. And that's, I have no faith-based justification for destruction on that level. I just can't. I can't do it. And incidentally, I have taken a couple mission trips to Vietnam. And one of the things we always do when we're in Vietnam is we go to the Vietnam War Museum, which is fascinating because it's the story that we've been told since grade school from the other side. This museum is 5 stories tall. There is an entire story dedicated to Agent Orange and what Agent Orange did to the land, the people, the water supplies, the plant life. Absolutely devastated the ecosystem of Vietnam for generations. So even bringing it all the way back to a creation care story, what we do in war has a direct impact on the environment around us, and can, again, they're still dealing with Agent Orange today. However many years after Vietnam War, they're still dealing with it. So it's something for us to consider.
Yeah. I think I see an Amy with her hand raised. I'm unmuting you, Amy. I don't see you on my screen, but I'm sure you're there somewhere.
I'm there. So it seems to me that one of the things that comes up over and over is we're talking about the time frame. And it seems to me that when we're talking about the earth and we're talking about the trees, for example, in war, those food trees, the fruit producing trees take a very long time. We're talking generations. And that the war is a now and not future. And I think that the time frame that we are supposed to look at when we're looking at the earth is a much longer one, that it's not about us. It's the planting of the tree that's going to be there, not for my generation, but for the generation that's coming.
And that to me, Amy, sounds like the positive spin on the negative problem of climate change. You know, for a long time, I've heard climate change, you can't do anything to fight it because it would so drastically alter our lives. I mean, if we couldn't drive, we'd be stuck in home all the time, and we would have to telecommute to work, and that we would have to, you know, be careful about grocery shopping in large numbers. And we felt like that was too big a burden when it was climate change, and it was generations away that we'd feel the problem. The minute the threat got real with coronavirus, all of a sudden we're very okay with all those, you know, restrictions and life changes. So, you know, yeah, it is a long-term investment. That's just really hard for us in our immediate culture to understand how best to do that investment.
That quote that Rabbi was suggesting is one where one of the things is it says that the workers are lazy.
Yeah,
and it's the task is great, the workers are lazy, and it's, I think that's sort of that quote has a flavor to it of the taskmaster is like urgent, and that this is something that needs doing and people don't want to do it, but the reward, and that's the part at the end, the reward is great.
Very nice. Robbie Tarpon.
Rosemary's iPad, is that a hand raised?
Here we go. Let's see. I'm unmuting. Wait, Rosemary, I'm trying to unmute you, but I think only you can unmute yourself. There you go. Wait.
Got her. Okay.
Okay.
Here.
First thing, I know it's harder work, but can you send us all the the scriptures you've used today?
Sure.
Okay. Second thing is, though, we go back to, what's today, what's tomorrow. Your lawn. Is your lawn doing any good for anybody? You have all this unused land, not productive land. You're putting pesticides on it. You're putting growth hormones on it, all which then runs into the water. So that's something that we can do. But what would your neighbors do to you if you stopped taking care of your lawn?
I can tell you. They're not happy. We get notes on our door.
Yeah, I actually, again, this is my detriment. Pastors are busy people, and because, no one else is busy. It's just us. But I have routinely gotten a warning from the township of Bethel Park because I don't go out and mow my lawn enough. They don't like me very much. So some of my neighbors are pretty bothered by the way I take care of my lawn, which they may have a point there.
Nope.
I don't know. It can look kind of jungle-ish out there, but yeah, I don't use pesticides or any of that stuff in our yard. I'm not interested in that. But that's, again, I've been saying with the whole COVID thing, this is one of those things that only works if we all play by the rules. If somebody stops the quarantine business, then it's not going to work the way we want it to. Climate change, boy, there's just so much similarity between climate change, climate care, and this COVID thing. If we all aren't playing by the same rules, it's not going to work. So it's going to take a shared effort and a shared humanity to get that done.
Very good. I see two hands raised.
Oh boy.
Pick on someone. I'm typing up.
You're typing. Oh boy, I clicked the different pro. Oh my goodness. Let's go, Helena.
Okay.
Hi. When I'm a transplant from Houston, and so when I lived in Houston, it's definitely a car culture down there, but I figured out ways to take the bus whenever possible to get into work. So when I moved here, one of my requirements was that I had easy access to mass transit. It's not always convenient, and I will use my car to go to the grocery store. But the thing is, we've made this decision that we want to live in the country. So we're further and further and further away from work. And when I lived in Houston, there were people that would drive easily 70 and 80 miles to get into work. One way. You know, they would be in their cars an hour and a half. And because they wanted to live in the country. Well, everybody's migrating out to the country, and suddenly the country's no longer the country. And I know out in Texas, you know, they're covering up the prairie lands. When you hear about Hurricane Harvey, one of the problems was they asphalted over all of the land. Where does the water go? People's homes. So I think that, you know, we have to make these hard decisions that maybe our lives shouldn't be convenient always for me, that maybe we need to find some ways, some things that we can do where it's not always so convenient for me, but it's better for the greater community. And one more thing, and then I'm gonna, I recently bought myself a new lawnmower. It's a real lawnmower, REEL. It's not gas, it's not electric, it's totally push. It does the nice little whirring noise. It's a lot of work too. Let me just say, it is a workout. And I don't have a perfectly manicured lawn. I don't care. That's an English thing. We don't live in England. We got to stop this whole has to be an English lawn look, and that's ridiculous. For crying out loud, I don't want to have, you know, really long grass because we've got to worry about ticks here because of Lyme disease, because we keep building communities in the farmlands and in the woods, cutting down trees. So now it's good for deer, bad for carnivores that go after deer. And we're going to have a horrible Lyme disease problem. They already have it in the East Coast. There was a study where they looked at ticks off of a bunch of deer in Connecticut. 50% of the ticks had Lyme disease. So, it's part of that climate change, but it's also part of us wanting to have this environment that is totally about me and not so much about us. Okay, get off my soapbox now.
And Lyme disease is something that does exist here. I about, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, probably 5 years ago, my daughter wakes up one morning and she's like, I can't get out of bed. We're like, get out of bed. It's school. No, I can't move my legs. Oh, stop it. And we drag her out of bed, and it turns out she couldn't move her legs. She had Lyme disease. So Lyme disease does exist in Pittsburgh as well. So it can happen. And we felt like bad parents when we yelled at the kid for saying she can't move her legs. So he really couldn't. We do see a hand up. What do you have there, Jason?
Really quick, just to that point about moving out into the suburbs and the farmland. I am a cyclist. This is a book I picked up at a bike shop of all places called Why We Drive. And it shows kind of the move from, we used to have these downtown centers where everybody could walk, bike, visit each other that way. You worked in the same, walkable distance away from work. Somewhere along the way, we decided that living out in the suburbs was better. And that's when things really started to ramp up in terms of car usage and things like that. So I still, as much as I can, ride my bike to work. I know that's not an option for everybody, but again, that's a piece of the equation.
Okay, I think we see Bob, you got your hand raised, and I think you are unmuted.
Yeah, one of the things I try to hold myself accountable for It's a frame of reference that I don't know when I become conscious of it, but it was quite some time ago. There's a difference between wants and needs.
Hmm.
And, if you really boil it down, my needs are very simple. They're really not that complicated. An awful lot of what I have around me probably falls into the want category. So I use that to weigh, I think, sometimes when I make decisions. And I slip in, and wants are okay, I think, but just to be conscious of the difference, to choose to do something that's to satisfy a want, is a choice I make. To a degree, when we talk about needs, that's not so much of a choice.
Very good. I agree. Okay, we got Joan. I'm unmuting you, Joan. You are unmuted. You've got something.
Okay, so this is not an original idea. I don't take credit for it at all, but I just want to very briefly relay that in the community in which we vacation the month of January in Florida, Sanibel Island, arose about, I don't know, 6 months ago maybe, or longer, an interfaith group started by a member of the UCC church there. And she started this group. She's an amazing woman. And it's called the Green Team. So it's evolved into an interfaith consortium. And let me tell you, this woman is on top of this 24/7, saving the local environment and maybe even beyond. So it occurs to me listening to this discussion, I'm not suggesting that we try to replicate her incredible work here, but I'm wondering if there is some small piece of it that Bethel and Temple Emmanuel, I see some people from Temple on this Zoom call. Hi, Amy. And Westminster Church could do something together, some small project or goal. And like at Bethel a couple of years ago, we moved to recyclable paper goods to save the environment. I don't know what Westminster is doing, but that's one question I have. And then the other thing I want to ask is whether there's something that jointly the two clergy think there's something jointly we could work on. End of my question.
Yes, it's the short answer, right? Obviously at this point, new programming is a little bit on hold.
Yeah.
But I think that's totally true. And I think, part of the sadness of being bigger congregations in the South Hills is that we tend to think we can do it all on our own. So like Westminster has a peace and justice group that is very interested in environmental justice. How great would it be if we could work together with our friends here and work up something together? We'd have a much bigger impact that way. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I was working. Dan Miller, he's kind of our local politician, and we're working with St. Paul's there. They got a new guy there. So there's a few of us in Westminster. I have a feeling that there's good things coming. Joan, don't give up hope on us. Susie, I see your hand raised. I'm unmuting you. Actually, I think you have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you. And I'll put video on also. I'm walking. So wait.
Nice.
There we go.
You are.
Okay. So a couple of things. First of all, one thing that we don't really think of as environmental, but absolutely is 412 food rescue. So we think of that as addressing our hunger issues, which certainly now is a huge deal. And they're actually getting something in place now to bring food to individual homes. But in addition to that, they're taking food that otherwise would be going to landfills away, and they're really having a positive impact on the environment. So that's something that I know a number of our congregants at Bethel, and I imagine across the board, are involved with. So I just wanted to raise that as something that we're doing that we might not, think of first and foremost as being for the environment. Secondly, this to me is all about society. Like the United States, it's all about, like when we go back number of decades, bigger and better, bigger house, bigger car, all that sort of thing. And all of that ends up being so opposed to or having a more negative impact on the environment. So, but that's not, like from our government, whomever is in office. I think that it feels un-American to not, over the decades, for the people in charge to not have encouraged people to try to improve their lot in life and in those material ways. But like in Switzerland, since I know the 90s, and I imagine for some time beforehand, you're only allowed, as a citizen there, you're only allowed um, uh, to to have a certain amount of garbage in volume. So it can weigh as much as it's going to weigh, but you only get like a certain like cubic um, amount of volume to throw away every week when your garbage is collected. And if it's bigger than that, then you get charged. And that's their way of controlling the impact on the environment. But we don't do that sort of thing in the United States because we're such a culture of consumption. And so I think, until that becomes less about who we are, somebody had said, to be more about us than about me. I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of meaningful change.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go on a quick rant here on that because, somewhere along the way, the United States decided that the economy was our number one indicator of health. So, waste is a huge piece of climate change, right? How much we consume and then throw away has a profound effect on our environment. So if we all got together and started to say, we're going to consume less so that we waste less, so that we, can live longer, the economy would take a hit. And surely I had thought in recent days, no one would ever argue that people's lives were less important than the economy. I point you again to what some people are saying in response to this pandemic. Like, that's a problem. And that's a demon that we as a country are going to have to wrestle sooner rather than later. That our strength is not in our economic produce. It's in so many other things of our livelihood. And it's concerning that we might get too far ahead of our skis before we can do anything about that.
Very good. What do we got here? Let's see. We got Helena. Let's see. Unmute. Okay, I think you got to do it yourself.
Yeah, I just, Rabbi, this is actually kind of a question for you.
Jason's here.
This year's Passover was different from all of our Passovers. And
very good. Good Jewish line. All right.
And, yeah. And, one of the things that Passover to me has been problematic because of the waste. People, buy more paper plates and things like that, and plastic so you have these seders and everything is throwaway, and I've been to some big seders where they don't have enough dishes that are kosher for Passover, and so they just use paper and plastic. And then we buy all this extra food that I've thrown away my share of Passover food that I've had for 2 and 3 years, because at some point you just go, yeah, I can't eat this. And so Passover has been, and then you have to buy all the extra dishes. I've got my kosher for Passover meat and my dairy and my pots and pans and flatware and glasses and and all. And it bothers me. And this year I didn't, I kept kosher. I looked at the ingredients. I made sure there wasn't one of the, 5 forbidden grains. And then I said, it's good enough. And you know what? I felt fine about it. I felt fine not buying that artificial bouillon cube that is nothing but chemicals, but that's kosher for Passover. I mean, I'm really, the whole kosher for Passover thing, I just liked it so much better this year than I have liked Passover in the past.
Yeah,
You,
I think that a lot of what you're bringing up are choices. I know we all make the wrong ones, whether it's the paper products or buying too much Passover food and then being stuck with 16,000 boxes of matzah. Then they all get dropped off in front of my office, and really the food banks don't want that much matzah either. And I get all that, and you know the wastefulness. I mean, there is a lot. Yeah, certainly this year was very different. We just looked for gluten free and said, let's do it. But and then next year we'll go back to horrible food. But I'd like to think that we are trying to learn. I know I have a young couple who just started keeping kosher, yeah, and they couldn't afford another set of dishes, right? So one of the answers is, well, you should just have a Passover set of dishes. But at a certain point, not everyone can have 16 sets of dishes in their house for Judaism, Jewish purposes. But you know, most of us don't have non-porous, or most of us do not have porous dishes. We're not eating off wood. So perhaps we should also just reuse the dishes we have, set them through the dishwasher, it's steam and it's kosher. So, and when it comes to food, I just, yeah, I remember I had someone who started keeping kosher, and they said they were either going to get kosher meat or what is it? Organic meat. Like they said that the way the organic meat is raised compared, and this was right after this whole debacle with the kosher food not being ethical, like they felt that it was more kosher, the non-kosher meat was more kosher than the kosher meat. So I think that everything you bring up, Helena, is true, that there is a lot of waste, but it's also a lot of choice. And I like to think that just as you have made some choices, that we shouldn't, we don't have to be, we could do Passover without doing all that you said that we all are doing, including me, keeping all those leftover foods. And are you going to eat another Manischewitz cake? Yeah, that's made out of a matzah meal once Passover's over. We're trying to buy less, actually. Yeah, it makes it more miserable, but we do try to buy less when Passover's coming. We write down at the end of the Passover, what did we use? So next year we don't overbuy. But then, then the kids come home and and bad things happen. So I think there is a lot of overconsumption on Passover, but I also think everything you brought up is a choice too. Jude, it never says in the Bible or the Talmud, you must overbuy matzah or your silverware. I mean, that is something we all are doing. So I think you're learning, and unfortunately we all have to learn from it. So it's Jason, I don't know if you have overbuying for Easter, Easter eggs and bunnies and the fluffy things that people like.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Christmas.
overconsumption is a oh my gosh, Christmas is ugh,
Oh, that's
awful.
true. There's some waste.
Yeah, every year at Christmas time, we go over to my parents' place and they shower us in gifts, and I look at the 3 to 4 garbage bags of wrapping paper. We wrap this present for a 5-minute exercise of the possibility of unwrapping it. It's like, oh, I don't know about that. Yeah, it's hard. It is a choice. This Lent, my practice. So in the Christian tradition, you're supposed to give something up for Lent. I always try and give up broccoli, but that doesn't always play out well. You're supposed to give up something you enjoy, like coffee or chocolate or something like that. And this year, before Lent got eaten up by the coronavirus, I was giving up single-use plastic. Any plastic that I only used once and then threw away, I was trying to do without. So no, coffee cups from Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, take reusable stuff in, reusable grocery bags. You don't know how much single-use plastic we use as a society until you try and stop using it. It's everywhere. My first day, I was so proud going into the grocery store with all my reusable bags. I'm not going to use plastic bags, hooray. And then I got to the meat department where everything is shrink wrapped in single-use plastic, right? So again, it's that awareness piece that we talked about earlier. We kind of bear some responsibility to actually educate ourselves on the choices we're making.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's
So
super hard.
Yeah, I saw another hand up. Let's see. What is that? I'm looking at my screen.
Dilly bar.
Dilly bar.
Yeah, it's funny in Peters where we live, they came around with these trash bins. We went from bags on the curb to these bins now. And it's kind of funny that we have one little tiny bag in the bottom of this humongous bin, and yet we see other people up and down the street that have stuff overflowing. But what occurred to me is, we spent time in Vermont, and in northern Vermont, recycling is, and this is 20 years ago, very much a way of life. And you could they're cutting back, like the plastic now, we can only recycle 2 of 5 or 6 kinds, and we have buckets of glass out here on our deck that we're going to have to haul someplace because they're not taking that anymore. It seems like, I mean, I get that it's driven by economics, which is something else we've talked about, but at the end of the day, recycling is taking more work now than it did before. So we focused more on not buying that stuff in the first place when we have a choice.
It is such a culture thing. I was at a conference in Austin, Texas, which, if you've never been, Austin's a weird place, everybody. It's super weird. Super hippy dippy artsy town. But we got to the seminary where we were, and everything was compostable. Plates, forks, cups, everything. It was designed in such a way that you could compost it instead of throwing away or recycling it. And I said, "Oh, is this, the seminary's big push for composting?" And our host said, "No, it's the whole city." And true enough, you couldn't throw a rock in Austin and not hit a composting garbage can right next to the regular garbage can, which was right next to the recycling bin. And I came away from it thinking, like, why do we as a city in Pittsburgh not have this? And the answer is just no one's ever pushed for it. And I think that's part of our responsibility too, right? There are some individual decisions we have to make, but there are some communal decisions we have to make. And that gets us into politics. And I don't want to go there with only 5 minutes left in the Zoom experience. Yeah.
And by the way, Bill from Peters, Joan Charlson can tell you where to recycle your glass. That's your message. All right.
We know.
Very nice. All right, how we doing? I know the Zoom, people go back to work at 12, at 1 o'clock. How we doing here? It's we're going to plan more of these. By the way, we can't tell the difference between Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, June, March, whatever month it is. So we'll be doing more of these. Any final thoughts and talks and points for Earth Day? Let's see, Jorna, you're raising your hand or just moving around? Oh, we can't hear you. Here it goes. We will unmute you. You are unmuted.
Okay, well, let's put our heads together for the future when life returns to normal, and try to work, communally on a small way to save the environment together on an interfaith platform.
I have no doubt that we can do that. We have the right people in place now. I can't always, I think between many of our congregations, I think Rabbi Aaron at Temple Emmanuel will be on for this one. I think, St. Paul's, I think we've got Westminster, Bethel, we'll try. But, I'm the old guy now, but, I think we have the right people in place to bring this together too, whether it's 412 Food Rescue or something bigger. We also got Dan Miller. We've got the politics there too. Sue, I think we had
let me toss in real quick before we jump to Sue that I'm going to say something scary that fills me with a lot of hope. The only thing with what you said, Joan, that I disagree with is back to normal. I don't think there's a normal coming back to us after this, which is so exciting because normal wasn't that great, especially in terms of climate change and creation care. So I'm beyond going back to normal. I'm what does the new look like? And I think that's the part that fills me with excitement around, working together on some climate change stuff.
Very nice. Okay. And Sue, you are unmuted.
Yeah, I just have a quick question, Joan. When you have a chance, or maybe you can share with the group, I'd be interested in knowing where you can recycle glass now. I participated in the first Earth Day, as I'm sure many people on this call did. And I really learned how to help our environment by smashing glass after glass on that first day. But we're starting to fill up with glass. So I would love to know. Thanks.
Joan, here, I'll unmute you. You're going to try to telling us?
Okay, so on East McMurray Road in Peters Township, The fire department has, you pull up and go to the rear of the fire department. There's 3 enormous bins, and you don't have to sort your glass. You just take the caps off, the lids off, and toss it in, and you've recycled your glass free of charge. It's great. It's wonderful.
Very nice. Susie.
Yes, just along those lines, are there other places to recycle different kinds of plastics that people know about? I had been told that Whole Foods, I think Andy Barham has, on his blog, I think I had learned from him that Whole Foods will take like 1 through 5 of the different numbers of plastic. Does anybody know if there are other places? Because I haven't been to Whole Foods since this has gone down.
Yeah. Anyone? Bob, is that an answer or a different thing?
No, it's a different thing though. I'm
Okay.
curious about the same thing. No, the other thing I wanted to mention on glass for people who are up in the north, there's Michael Brothers have been doing this pretty much since the beginning of the year, I think. So, and they have a drive-in place. They also recycle metal too, if you happen to have some of that.
So Susie, I'm gonna reach out to Andy Barham, who knows everything about everything when it comes to recycling. He'll let us. Maybe he can tell me what where we can do 1 through 5, and I'll try to put it out there too.
There's also, just tossing out there, because I know this is another big piece of waste, is I know at least Upper St. Clair and I think Bethel too do a once-a-month electronics recycling. If you've got an old TV, an old computer, don't just chuck that in the trash. The Upper St. Clair, you'll wait in line a little while, but what else is new?
Worth it. Alina, we're finishing up here. Here we go. You're unmuted.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say the problem with plastic is it used to get it was sent over to China. They no longer recycle. A lot of our plastic, we thought we were recycling when actually it ended up in Indonesia and the Philippines and other places, and they had big burn piles. So basically our plastic that we recycle became other people's pollution. So the thing is there's really minimal recycling of plastic. We think we're recycling, but all you got to do is just do a quick Google, search on plastic recycle, Indonesia.
It's a real
story. And the same thing with glass. Glass has also, there's nowhere, it can't be reused the way we thought, or there's not the market for reuse. That it's too expensive. It's more expensive to reuse it than it is, to just make new glass. And glass is made from sand. So it's concrete. So they're taking apart all of our beaches to make glass and concrete.
Jason, what do you got?
I was just gonna say, that's a very real thing. I was watching a YouTube guy that was biking the whole length of Baja, Mexico, and it was an incredibly beautiful place until he came across 6, 7 of these plastic burn piles that were just like incredible landfills that just took over the road, and people had lit it on fire, which I'm sure smelled great. It's a real problem out there. It's a real problem out there.
I think we're on our last comment. Where's Bob? I just lost you. Okay, there you are. What do you got? Bob Dilly, here's, okay.
Yeah, just we're talking about this. I love the food rescue 411, 412. Something we noticed this year, we tilled the garden and then we went and started looking for plants to put in the ground. And vegetable plants are harder to get. A lot of people are planting gardens that hadn't done that previously. And another thing we do, we don't even think about it anymore, is all our food scraps go in the garden, compost.
Compost.
So, that's an easy thing. You don't need much of a vegetable garden in order to do that.
Yeah. Well, Jason, it's 1:14. We've hit our 1:14 moment. I'm going to unmute everyone, which is usually a mistake, but this way you can say hello and goodbye, and say hi. And we really appreciate it. We went up to like 31, 32. We're down to 26, which is pretty good after 60, 75 minutes. So here we go. I'll mute. There we go. You're all unmuted. Thank you for the.
Thank you.
experience.
That was
And
great.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
job.
Friends.
you.
It was really good.
Jason,
Andy Byram.
Yes, ma'am.
can you stay on for a minute?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
There it goes. You're gonna get that spiking thing.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, and I'm gonna reach out to Andy Byram and get some information by Sunday
Thank
email.
you.
All right.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Been saying this is like the 2020 version of no, you hang up first.
So wait. So are you going to still record this? No, right?